Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Man on the Rocks. It is I, the Hellcat himself, Joe. Joining me this week, we have my other feline friend, Atlas.
Hello, everybody.
It's another local brew. What better way to parade around my ego than to talk about the list that I top four in my first top four with. No, we're covering Hellcat. Super cool list, super interesting, got a lot of history to it, and it's a pretty interesting and diverse list. But not as interesting and diverse as these announcements. Atlas, tell me about them.
Let's see. This week's a big week for Washington Cedh. We've got Sound Gaming's Showdown on the 8th. That's this Friday. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. It's a smaller event, 32-player cap, and it's taking place in Tacoma. But that's the evening before the event that I know that you're all excited for, which is Cascade Clash. It's a 4K. It's being put on by Aegis Games up in Bellingham. They're hosting it in Mount Vernon as part of their Cascade Clash gaming convention. So we're going to be there for that. I know that I will. Joe's going to do his best. He might have some personal stuff that he has to take care of those. So let's all cross our fingers and hope he shows.
We're trying, baby. We're trying.
You want to see this list in person. Let's.
I might be bringing this list. You don't know.
He could surprise you with something different. So yeah, so that's happening this weekend, both Saturday and Sunday. It's a 2-day event. That'll be a lot of fun. I will definitely be there along with several other people from our crew. So we'll be rolling up and playing. I know there will be members from the Cedh team who are showing up. So that'll be it's going to be a lot of really good competition there. If you haven't already signed up, there are plenty of slots left. You should go ahead and do that. You can register through Best Coast Pairings, and that's the link to that is on the Aegis Games website. You can also contact them through their Facebook, and I think they also have a link on topdeck.gg now. So go ahead and check that out.
It'll also just be in the description in the show notes.
It will also be in the description in the show notes. So check that out. So we're hoping to see you for that. Following that, the next tournament that I'm aware of for this month is March 30th. It's Cedh 6, something like that. I've lost count, but this is the second tournament in the 2024 Washington circuit for Cedh. So go ahead and register for that if you haven't already. Those slots are filling up fast. I know that they're hoping to hit like 60 players this time, so they're already getting like up to like the 20s or something. So go ahead and register for that. You only got a couple weeks left before that'll be all booked up. We capped last time; they had to extend the cap actually, so make sure that you register for that. And then, of course, Punt City. Looking forward to that. I'll be there. Unfortunately, Joe will not. But we will have representation at Punt City. So I'm looking forward to meeting any of you there who listen to us.
Absolutely.
Those are our announcements.
Oh, how could we forget the most important announcement, the Lucky Patron of the Week? Shout out to our boy Rez. Thank you very much for supporting us, my friend. You should come on down and get a drink with us. All right, so Hellcat. This is a interesting deck for me and for you because it initially started as like my sort of take on like an early form of Kenrith. Back when you were first starting to go, I had the idea. I'm like, well, what can I do? Not playing white, but playing different commanders, and I kind of like ping-ponged around to a bunch of different things. I think I actually tried Stranger Things Kids at some point.
I don't. You might have. I don't remember.
I vaguely remember like 11 and Max being like ideas or some combination of the Stranger Things Kids. And someone had mentioned, this is back when we were still running Birthing Pod as one of the main lines, that the Thrasios and Vile Smasher are just better cards generically, and also better cards in terms of the CMC, because that deck was caring a lot about the CMC at that time, for like pod effects specifically. Tinkered with that list for a while, and eventually kind of shelved it as I tried out different things. And then you picked it up again.
Yeah, I got bored. I wanted to play around with some different color pairings and just see what like Sans White could do, since protection has just become so important for the just gameplay in general, especially when it comes to like underworld breaching. And I wanted to play with Breach. I have an LED that was sitting in a box, and I wanted to mess around with that for a little bit. So I broke it out. I was able to play around with like Board Upon a Wind and some stuff like that. just because I thought it would be fun. But of course, I kept the Displacer Kitten package in there, and then
it's just sweet.
Yeah, it's just cool. It's just strong. So and then played that for a little bit, had some ideas, and then kind of just reworked some things with you and moved it towards its current version.
Yeah, and this is the deck that I've been just playing the absolute hell out of. Haha. Since end of last year, I think.
So.
Basically after tournament season ended for last year, I messed around with some old decks and tried some stuff, and I'm like, okay, let's give Hellcats a try. Let's revisit this idea, because I really like the changes that you had made, and I'm like, well, let's give your version a shot, and I kind of fell in love with the list. It's really, really good. And especially the last few changes we made kind of put it over the top.
Yeah.
So I preamble kind of out of the way. What is this deck? So it's Sans White, it's Thrasios File Smasher, and it's a Displacer Kitten list. Sort of. It's kind of a pile. It's kind of not. The namesake card being Displacer Kitten and Hellcats. It kind of leans us towards, like, that's one of the main win cons for the deck is have really good creatures and really good spells, and Displacer Kitten kind of merges those worlds and you're able to take advantage of all of those things. But now we're on things like Underworld Breach, LED Brain Freeze, just that really good combo. And we're kind of able to take it up a notch with Born Upon a Wind, which honestly, if ever there was a deck to take full advantage of Born, it would be this deck. Straight up. I think what Blue Form is able to do with it is super cool and super interesting. What this deck is capable of doing with it is so much more.
I think that the best way to characterize the deck is probably as like an aggressively slanted mid-range list, or like an aggressively slanted control list, because a lot of our cards are still like control style staples. Like, we're still playing Endurance, we're still playing like a full counterspell suite, and Displacer Kitten in general tends to lend itself to a control style strategy where you develop pieces and you incrementally accrue like board value until you just drop a Displacer Kitten and then just kind of win with whatever pieces are in rotation. So I think that's probably the best way to sum it up.
Aggro control almost kind of fits the bill a little bit, because this deck just hard pivots into the win, and you cannot stop it once it does.
Especially with like the current iteration, I think the aggro control is a really good way to slice it, because we're kind of like ground focused too. Like, there's a lot of like creatures that just hit hard, like they'll just beat you up. There's
a lot of big beefy guys in here, and that's a lot of fun. Previously, we were all really, really pilled on Bloodchief Ascension, and then that was in the deck prior to some of the last few changes we make, and I really do like the card. I don't think it's for every meta. I think it's kind of you kind of have to. It's a meta call kind of choice, because it does have the like backup combo of like randomly being able to brain freeze people out of the game just because you have an active Bloodchief Ascension and the stack got huge at one point, or like meme betrayal shenanigans. And we'll kind of dive into that, but we kind of diverged from that and more focused on the creatures, and I think that ended up being a correct call.
Yeah. I think that Bloodchief Ascension is really great into like a heavily mid-range meta like ours is, but I also think that the card it can be temperamental, and when you aren't playing, like if you don't need that life gain to sustain you or to punish more mid-rangey lists, like you can just kind of inherently keep up with them based on your strategy, sort of like this list does, then there's no real reason to pivot into that. But for all of the turbo players out there, or people looking to sort of like pad their life totals for their Adnals or something in a mid-range heavy meta, Bloodchief's Ascension is a really great card to tech in, even though it can be temperamental. Turbo in general can be, so you're not really like altering the feel of your deck that much.
No, not at all. Okay, well let's enough jibber jab. Let's jump into the deck. So kind of starting out the creature base, we're on 4 dorks. We're on birds, Deathrite Shaman, Delight Halfling, and Ignoble Hierarch. Just
all the color fixing dorks. There is potentially an argument to be on like Elves of Deep Shadow. I've never felt like this deck needed a 5th dork. I think between the rocks and the dorks and us having a Thrasios, like we pretty consistently get our mana online, and that's not really much of a problem. And it ends up being like the most nothing dork. Like it color shifts, and that's about really all it does. Whereas like the rest of these cards have some form of added utility. Birds of Paradise blocks in the air. Delighted Halfling makes legendaries uncounterable. Ignoble Hierarch is not prowess, exalted trigger. And Deathrite Shaman is the best 1-drop in the game. Kind of all that really needs to be said for those cards.
Yeah. There's and of course they neoform into Dockside Extortionist.
And they are all very important because our 2-drops are. And this is the thing that I think I need to just slam this card back in. But for the 2-drops, and we're going kind of faster just because these cards, they don't really need explanation. The 2-drops we're on is Dockside Gilded Drake Bowmasters. Critically, Fimage is missing from this list. And that's, I personally don't like not having Fimage in a list. There are so many times where I'll like Chord or Finale or like want to get a 2-drop, and I'm like, really love to get a clone. kind of wish I can get a clone with this right now.
Yeah, I'll take the blame for that one. It was my idea to cut Phantasmal Image because I'm not a big fan of it in the list where you're not abusing the ability to bring it back after sacrificing.
And like I get that, but also like it's a 2-mana clone.
Yeah. Like it's still strong and very good no matter what.
But even still, like it's really all you need. Don't need to explain ourselves really much further. Gilded Drake is sweet. We're on instant speed line, so being able to Drake stuff at instant speed is super cute, super huge. Bowmasters is an outlet for when we kind of assemble God mode. Displacer Kitten plus loops means that Bowmasters is a way to kill the table, so it's backup win con. And then Dockside is the Dockside. Yeah,
like we were talking about earlier, the list kind of derived from like my Kenrith Cheshire deck, and so the one notable difference, of course, is that like our infinite mana outlet in the command zone doesn't kill the table.
No.
So it's something that we have to be hyper aware of. Is like we have to make sure that our loops are always like they'll draw our deck, but we have to make sure we have a way to actually win the game after we draw our deck. Otherwise, it just kind of like it's inconsequential. So that's the one thing that like you always have to be aware of when playing a list that isn't Kenrith. I have come to find out.
Yeah, no, making sure you have your outlets is super critical, and we kind of beefed up some of the outlets in this deck a little bit, and we'll kind of dive into them. But yeah, Bowmasters has been more than enough in terms of just being able to win the table based on some of the other cards that we decided to run in this list. Speaking of which, 3-drops. The 3-drops I really like in this deck. I think it's a smattering of really good 3 CMC cards. We have Dualcaster Mage, we got Endurance, we got Eternal Witness, Mayhem Devil, Oppo, and Spellseeker. Mayhem Devil was a last-minute addition, and one that I really like. Mayhem Devils in lists is really, really good. We're on some good cards that are really able to capitalize on having a way to ping things on the battlefield for free, a la Bowmasters.
Yeah, I think Mayhem Devil is one of the ones I like it in general. It's just strong, like pseudo stack piece card. I think that we didn't have it in the list for it was, and then it wasn't, and then it was, and then it wasn't. We didn't have it in the list for a while. I wasn't playing it in my version that came before this, but then we made some additional tweaks because of some newer cards that we're going to get into with in our forecast. But like Massacre Girl, Known Killer, very cool card. Gets even better if you can deal damage directly to creatures.
Very cool. Yeah, nothing really needs to be said about the rest of the 3-drops. Like, these are kind of, we're in a control-y style game plan. These are cards that are really good for a control-y style game plan. I mean, Dualcaster is any card in the entire game. Endurance saves your life. Bewit is a really good middle-of-the-road kind of developmental piece, as well as combo enabler. Mayhem Devil being the outlet, additionally for Dockside stuff, is really, really nice. It's good to have that like extra backup. Where like Bowmasters, if it eats like a swords or something, or path, or it's otherwise unavailable to us, being able to flex over into a secondary outlet is really, really nice. Hasn't come up yet, but having the redundancy I think is really, really critical, and it interacts on an axis that I just don't see Mayhem Devil out anymore these days.
Yeah, a lot of decks have stopped running it, but I've also seen it come up in the world again because there's a lot of treasure stuff going around, a lot of sacrifice shenanigans, and of course, Massacre Girl does just make the card a lot better. Like you have a 2-card combo that just slowly deletes the entire board, even if like there's only one crack and you can't actually kill what you want to kill. Being able to wither away its toughness just turn after turn and eventually kill it and draw a card is very, very strong.
Yeah, and this was I haven't, so it's been in the list, and I've played with it in the list. It hasn't come up. And we kind of talked about this in the OCCS recap. To go check that episode out. Really good episode. Where like had I gone for Massacre Roll line, I think I would have been able to eke out a bit more value and have a bit more life at that table. But the card was just so new, and I didn't like fully realize what it was capable of.
Oh, the card is table warping.
Yeah. It's a very good card.
Just changes how people block, how people attack you. It's super good.
It's just killer. Haha.
Haha.
Rounding out our 4-drops, we have obviously Displacer Kitten needs 0 introduction from us. Card is really, really good and is a really solid, really formidable build around. Kind of in any deck that can make use of it. Just incremental value from interacting with your opponents or being able to squeeze out more advantage are already really good non-creatures. It wins the game. It just does.
It just wins the game.
It just wins the game. Metamorph and Talion, kind of, if you're in the colors, you just kind of have to play those cards right now. Metamorph specifically gets added synergy from being able to be targeted by Displacer Kitten, something that Finage cannot claim. And being able to copy a One Ring randomly, it's pretty good. Being able to copy a Soul Ring, being able to copy a Soul Ring, pretty good.
Neoforming into the One Ring feels really cool.
Very, very cool. Very, very cool. And Talion is like the third Rhystic Study, so like we play that card. Seedborn Muse, Thrasios is in the command zone. Next, moving on. Niv Mizzet Perun. This is your tech.
Dude, I love this card. This card is just so good.
I got to play with the card, and it didn't draw me anything because it got dealt with immediately.
Yeah, that's the thing about this card. Is like sometimes this card hits the table and dies like before the turn even passes, and sometimes this card hits the table on turn 2 or turn 12, and it just sits there for the rest of the game, and you just kind of win because you passively accrue value as everyone interacts with one another and tutors and executes their game plans. You can just get to ping the board, get to ping players' life totals. Our friend John plays farm, and it's really funny because like I'll land this card and just start like somebody casts a spell and I'll just shoot him in the face, and so he catches all these strays, and it's like I feel kind of bad, but also like it's kind of it's like a joke between us now. It's like I'm just always pinging him with this Niv Mizzet because like he's on Adnaz, he's on farm, it's a really good deck, and I'm scared of it. So like I'm just somebody casts a spell, and thank you for counterspelling that win attempt, John. I'm gonna shoot you in the face for 1 after I've drawn a card. So it's just the card is just really good though.
It's very bonkers. It is one of those cards that I hate sitting across from because it's so freaking good.
And it's a great reanimate target too. Like that's the
stellar
thing. We're on a fair amount of like 2 or 3 reanimate effects. And
2 by my count.
Yeah, and then like a lot of our cards are good, but like sometimes reanimating an ETB just doesn't quite get you there. No. And if you have open with a Tomb reanimate, like putting Italian into play is good, but it doesn't always feel the best. So being able to just drop a Niv Mizzet into play on turn like 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever off a Tomb reanimate, kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's one of those really good like value engine like options that you can go to, because it's really cool whenever you do have the Entomb Reanimate option available to you, because there are so many like really good targets in this list. Like Dockside's a really good one in case the table decides to go Mondo Cuckoo crazy rocks. Spellseeker to get advantage, Oppo for blocking things, Metamorph for a 1 ring, Seedborn Muse because you landed an early Thrasios and have mana, Niv Mizzet to control players or combo players, and then Hullbreaker Whore is another addition to the deck to just randomly win the game.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's we decided to add that one in because we just felt we needed one more bomb, And Hullbreaker Horror is nothing if not a bomb. It's also
Yep.
uncounterable, just like Niv Mizzet, and it allows you to. It's really easy to cast. You can just like end step it before your turn, go into your turn, and just like sink all your colorless rock mana into a win the game outlet in the form of Thrasios.
Or you just cast a 7/8 flash uncounterable and start hitting someone with it.
Honestly, yeah, that just casting Hullbreaker Horror just to cast Hullbreaker Horror is super underrated, and like sometimes people will people have said, I have no rocks in play, none in my hand, here's my hand, like I'm just casting this Hullbreaker Horror to cast it, and it's like I respect that, and I don't care. I do not want to see that card sitting there where you can go cast Brainstorm and counter my spell. Like, it's just scary.
What do you mean?
It's totally scary.
Fine. It's totally fine. No, if it's a similar build to like Displacer Kitten, but like on steroids.
Big Lobster Boy.
Big Lobster Boy. Big likey on the Lobster Man.
And then we move into sorceries. Just 5. We're trying to keep as with most things these days, trying to keep the control builds mostly instant speed oriented. So we're playing Reanimate, Demonic Tutor, of course, just staples. Finale of Devastation, Neoform, and Eldritch Evolution. Nothing too surprising there. Nothing really like particularly neat other than like you could Neoform or Eldritch Thrasios or Vile Smasher into Displacer Kitten or like Italian or something interesting like that.
Yeah, like we're missing like the really big hits. Like you can Eldritch a Vile Smasher into like a Seedborn Muse is like the highest like mana efficient play you can make with it. Or I guess if you really want to, you can sack a Seedborn Muse and get like a Hullbreaker Horror. So like the laddering is there. But like it's Eldritch Evolution is just a good card. Just attack any creature, get any creature. It's just natural order. It just super solid card. You don't really need to explain more. Have like specific use cases for that. Neoform is insane because Spellseeker grabs the card, which turns into a Displacer Kitten all on its own.
Yep, yeah. Being able to just pay 5 mana to tutor and cast Displacer Kitten is very strong.
Sometimes it's exactly what you need.
Sometimes it's just what you need. You can also like chain Dockside into Eternal Witness into Displacer Kitten and things, just like weird things like that are just strong.
Okay, now we're kind of moving on to like the big pile, as it were. Instants. We're at 28 of them in this list. And then kind of just like going through, like it's a lot of, it's all the cards you would expect in these 4 colors to show up. So just kind of speed running it a little bit. For 0s and 1s, we have Pact Mitigation. Then we have Offer, Dark Rit, Entomb, Fluster, March of Swirling Mist. We'll get back to that one. Misstep, Noxious Revival, Swan Song, Vamp Tutor, Worldly Tutor. The only one that's a little bit weird is March of Swirling Mist, and honestly, I really like the card. Sometimes you just need to blank things randomly to just go for the win.
Yeah, I don't think the card's out of place at all, especially in a Breach deck. Like, I think March is fantastic because it removes like the 2 or 3 things that you need removed for 1 card, sometimes 2. Like, it's just a really, really efficient removal spell. That brings stuff back if you get blown out. Like, there's always the chance that like you do get stopped and the stacked pieces need to come back to stop somebody. You have to be a little careful with it, and the timing can be weird with the card just because of like the way phasing works. But other than that, honestly, I think it's a staple of the format right now.
Yeah, no, it's like even just being able to like out of position put like phase away someone's Drannith Magistrate just to resolve like a Thrasios, just to have your mana value engine online, and then pass to the person who has a Drannith Magistrate that will just come right back. So it's like, cool, I just traded this card for my Thrasios. That's really all I'm looking to do.
Yes, yeah.
At one point we were on Turn the Earth, and I really like Turn the Earth. I really like Turn the Earth. And I think it's a really sweet card. It just ended up being we had other stuff that we wanted to do instead. But I really do like the card. If you're on like green and want like more weirder pieces of interaction, Turn the Earth is stellar. I have 1 games off of being milled out and shuffling back my win cons. I have disrupted top deck tutors. I have gained life out of lethal range to not tighten my 1 ring out of it. It's an incredible card and would not be amiss to see here should you feel like you need it. But I didn't really feel like this deck needed it all too much. 2 drops. Got a lot of spice. Not really a lot of spice here, just a lot of really good cards. Abrupt Decay and Assassin's Trophy. Just the best removal spells that we have access to, essentially. I like Assassin's Trophy. I really like the flexibility of it. I wish I had access to Soul Partition because that card is just so much better than Assassin's Trophy. But Abrupt Decay, you need to run. It forces interaction. It gets out stacks pieces that you are losing to and can't be touched.
And it's uncounterable, yeah.
And it's uncounterable.
Gets your own board.
Brain Freeze, we kind of already covered. We're on LED Breach. The most dead card in the list because we're no longer on Bloodsheath Ascension. But even still, like, it's just efficient at what it does. It just gets you there.
Sometimes it's Seal of Top Deck, too.
Seal of Top Deck. Hey, sometimes that's all you need. Psych Rift, through our control deck. Play Psych Rift. We're on delay in this deck. Catch-all counterspell that casts easier. It could be Drain if you really want to, but the pips in this list are a little bit tight, and we're on maybe one too many single color or zero color lands for this deck for my comfort, so I think delay is going to be easier to cast than Mana Drain.
Plus, it just has pseudo graveyard hate stapled to it. Like if you're counting a creature, this one might reanimate or want to reanimate.
Yeah, or if you're able to time it really with a Drain of Magistrate or a Rule of Law, it just locks it out forever. It's super high utility. Snap is gas in this list. I love Snap. It's such a good card. I have used this card to combo. I have used this card to stop people, and I have used this card to give people mana so they can stop people when I am out of interaction. It is so good. It is so good.
It also has a combo with Eternal Witness and Gaia's Cradle too.
It does do that.
Just randomly, it just makes infinite mana for you to sink into Thrasios.
In case you needed more reason to run the card in this list. And then we kind of get to the crowning jewel of this list. Born Upon a Wind. Stupid card. Stupid. It's just a stupid card. It's dumb. In a format where we have access to so much mana, and we have so much sway to do what we want, being able to win out of nowhere on top of a City of Brass trigger, and you get to draw a card just randomly, is just stupid. It is simply insane. Every single time I resolve this card, I win the game. I don't really know what else needs to be said about that. I cast Born Upon the Wind, I cast Underworld Breach, and I win the game.
Yeah,
I've achieved a pseudo God mode. You cannot touch me.
It's really, I don't think I've seen many people lose after resolving a Born Upon a Wind. The card is very, very strong.
Breaking timing restrictions on a bunch of really broken cards is really, really good.
And it's easy to cast.
Super easy. It also, at the very least, it cycles for 2.
Yeah, it replaces itself.
It replaces itself. Well, it doesn't replace itself. It goes into the graveyard so you can cast with Underworld Breach or pick it up with Eternal Witness. That's what it does. It's just stupid. It's such a dumb, stupid card. Tainted Pact is in here. I don't think I mentioned that in the list, but yeah, Tainted Pact. Find the best card on top of your deck. That's all you needed to do. 3 drops. We got Quarter Calling, Deflecting a Swat, Force of Negation, Fierce Guardianship, Saw in Half, and a little spicy Ghostly Flicker. You put me on this deck, actually.
Yeah, Ghostly Flicker is a really neat card, especially you're planning to run, or at least we were planning to run Saw and Half combos anyways with Dualcaster Mage. So Ghostly Flicker is a neat card because it also combos with Dualcaster Mage in a similar way, where you put it on the stack and you copy it repeatedly with the DCM, and DCM uses the Ghostly Flicker to adjust the targets to flicker itself and something else, typically a land, which allows you to generate infinite mana that you can then sink into Thrasios. One of the interesting things about the Ghostly Flicker, though, is that, and the way that it interacts with Thrasios is, once you've made infinite mana and you start sinking into Thrasios, you can start putting all of your lands into play, and then as the loop is still going, you don't end the loop, you just continue with a copy of Ghostly Flicker on the stack. You start spinning Thrasios, and you draw your cards, and you dump all your lands into play, and then you can continue the loop where Ghostly Flicker then starts to target all of the tapped lands that Thrasios puts into play and untaps them by exiling them and returning them to play, which is cool. But you already have infinite mana. The more, it's a little niche, but the more interesting application is that since the deck does run Emergence Zone, normally Emergence Zone would be tapped and you'd have to resolve a Born Upon a Wind or something. Yeah, unusable. You have to resolve a Born Upon a Wind or something like that in order to go off at instant speed. But Ghostly Flicker and Dualcaster obviously are both instant speed just inherently. So for 6 mana, you can go make infinite mana, draw your deck, put Emergence Zone into play, and then crack the Emergence Zone. Since it's it enters quote unquote untapped with the Ghostly Flicker line. So it's a cool niche case use if for whatever reason you don't have access to Born Upon a Wind, say you pitched the Force of Will or a Chrome Mox, or it got countered and ended up in the bin earlier after a failed attempt or something. It gives you a second shot at doing everything at instant speed, just out of nowhere.
It also resets the One Ring.
It does also reset the One Ring,
which is not irrelevant. the more and more I play with the One Ring, the more and more I realize every deck needs a safety mechanism to reset or clear their own One Ring. I recently in Baby Pod swapped out Nature's Claim for Haywire Might. One, because it deals with opposing One Rings cleanly, but two, it also deals with my own, and I just wanted another way to deal with it that also had added utility. So being able to do that is so nice. Reset like a Mana Vault or something like that is just make me just ritual out of nowhere, and also be a combo piece. But also like you explained the Thrasios line with it, I'm like, oh. Yeah, we played that card 100%. That card's just super sweet. It's just super good.
It's just a Force of Will is like the floor.
Yeah, like that's good enough for a lot of cards. The rest of the 3-drops kind of standard, I would say. We're a little bit creature light for Portal Calling, but also we make a lot of mana because we're a Thrasios deck. So Port is just kind of like another instant speed way to get our guys out. Good card. Not more needs to be said about that. And then the last cards in our deck, we're playing Deadly Rollick, Mindbreak Trap, and Force of Will. Really good counter spells and removal spells. We have a 2-drop in the command zone. Deadly Rollick is a free piece of interaction. Just a really good card. I don't know why most Thrasios decks don't play it if they have access to it. It's just really good. And Mindbreak Trap and Force of Will. We don't like dying early.
Yep, they're just staple counter spells at this point.
And we're a deck with a control game plan, so Mindbreak Trap has to make an appearance. It's a super good card. I like it a lot. Atlas, what do we got in the rocks department?
Rocks is everything you'd expect, plus also a Alliance Eye Diamond, a Grim Monolith, and the One Ring. It's just all of your 0-cost rocks, your positive rocks, Arcane Signet, Confilter, Mox Amber, like just things to loop with Hullbreaker Ore. So anything too impressive. I'm actually more excited about the enchantment section.
Yeah,
because obviously we have Underworld Breach and Study and Remora. We mentioned that earlier. We're on Training Grounds because of Thrasios synergies. But then
I waffle. I just want to stop on Training Grounds for just a second here. I waffle between Training Grounds being like the most gas card that puts you so far ahead in the deck, or one of the most dog shit value engines the deck runs.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything without Thrasios, because that's literally the only activated ability that costs mana in the deck. But at the same time, once again, the floor is pitched to Force of Will, so I feel like it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's a super low floor. There are some days I'm like, do I really want to keep this Training Grounds in my deck? And then I play it and I activate 2 Thrasioses onto my end step with the same amount of mana that would have only activated when I go. Now,
just saw 4 cards.
Like, this card has to stay here, unfortunately.
Just saw 4 cards for 4 mana. That's a pretty good read.
Yeah.
So Training Grounds, and then fan favorite Necromancy makes an appearance. Just an additional reanimate effect. Additional reanimate effect at instant speed if necessary. But then the spicy include kind of an homage to the original Thrasios Bios Smasher Curious Control lists. We threw a Curiosity in here at the last second. I don't actually know if you've had a chance to play with it at all.
I haven't seen it once. I think I saw it once and it ended up getting pitched.
Yeah, so we'll have to get back to you on how effective that is, but we are playing it right now just because of we have Vial Smasher in the command zone, so literally the floor is equipped to your commander. Even if it is kind of inefficient, interacting with other players makes it go card neutral. But then since we were adding a bunch of pinging type effects for the Massacre Girl package, Curiosity kind of layered in naturally, where you can staple it onto a Mayhem Devil and use it to draw a card every time someone cracks something. You can staple it onto an Orcish Bowmasters and use it to draw a card every time someone else draws a card. You can staple it to, of course, Niv Mizzet, and then you actually have a combo assembled where you can just cycle through the rest of your library, put it all in your hand, probably kill a player or two, discard cards at the next cleanup step or whatever, and then endurance things back into your library to start the loop again. So it's just kind of one of those pieces where we thought it was definitely worth testing. It's 1 mana, it's blue, so it pitches to Force, as one will always say. And then so yeah, that's one of the latest pieces of tech that we've been testing out.
Yeah, no, I think the theory on it is really, really strong, because for the longest time, whenever I played a Vial Smasher deck, I was always of the opinion that the Curiosity effects were the weakest part of any list. Vial Smasher is there purely for combos. If there was any other red-black commander that had the text partner on it, that did anything more substantial than Vial Smasher, I would play that card in a heartbeat, provided it's also 3 CMC.
because that does matter at least a little bit. Curiosity gives some staying power to Vial Smasher. Now, I will say I have noticed like an uptick in games where I've cast Thrasios and kind of haven't been able to do anything, but just put a Thrasios out there to like turn on a Fierce or a Rollick and recognize kind of afterwards that no, if I got to cast Vial Smasher there, I probably could have moved the game towards an end, especially when you get into like really stalematey games. No one's gonna waste a removal spell on the Vial Smasher because it's a random chance to knock someone out of the game or ping someone. Why would you waste your removal spell on something that is a random chance?
Yeah,
but it will just force the game to go to an end at some point.
Yeah, it just kind of sits there and whittles people's health down until they're like, wait a minute, I'm at like 4 life, and if someone casts a Deadly Relic, for example, I could just die.
Mm-hmm. I've killed many players with a late game Vial Smasher, just cast any spell in my hand once a turn just to start pinging people down. And Curiosity kind of is a bit of a payoff, and being on Niv, being on all the pingers, we have ways to access the power of Curiosity without needing Vial Smasher specifically on the battlefield, a la if we're locked out like a Dranith Magistrate or a similar style effect or something like that.
It's just another draw engine style effect that we can play.
Just another draw engine. As you can tell, because we're moving on to the non-lands at this point, a lot of value engines in this deck. There's quite a number of them. I think we're on more value engines than most CDH decks. At least that makes sense. Barring like the random, I don't know, like green enchantments or like white enchantments that we can't play. Obviously, we could run Trouble in Pairs or Smothering Tithe. We probably would.
Unfortunately, we don't have access to those. Oh well.
Womp womp. Lands. We're on 28 of them. Initially, when you built the deck, it was at 29. I ended up cutting a land because I'm greedy, and it's felt fine.
Yeah, I don't think that was wrong. I just wanted to, in a Thrasios list, I'm a much more defensive player just in general, and so in a Thrasios list, I just wanted my Thrasios activations to ramp me more than necessarily draw me cards. So just differences in playstyle. People can change it to whatever they feel comfortable with.
Nothing really to write home about in the land base. It's what you would expect for 4-color. We're on Ancient Tomb because we play an Arcane Signet, and it also is half of a Thrasios activation. You're on 3 Shocks, Breeding Pool, Watery Grave, and Steam Vents, so just all the extra blue ones. We want to be able to always fetch a blue source. And then we're on Emergence Zone, as we previously mentioned. I wouldn't cut the colorless lands for the world, and the monocolor lands being Otawara and Beseiju. I mean, it's a little bit hard to play more pip-intensive cards, like I mentioned, like Mana Drain is really the only like super pip-intensive card that I wish I could play. I mean, it kind of steals any oxygen that Mana Drain was really fighting for in that department, but the mana base just works. It's a mana base. There's a Forbidden Orchard in there, which is kind of cute.
Yeah, we got gold lands, we got dual lands, we got a couple colorless lands, and we got spell lands.
Yeah, it's nothing fancy, nothing special. We're not on like crop rotation to like rotate into like a Gaia's Cradle or something. I would love to. That'd be sweet. You like that one a lot. But I don't really think it's necessary. Just finding the lands and playing them is going to be good enough for our game plan, because we will just cast a Thrasios and then spin to win, baby.
It also saves you from the pain of getting your crop rotation misstepped. I've been there once or twice and it feels terrible.
Yeah. But I fear nothing, so I am.
It's true.
I am okay with this outcome.
He has no fear.
No fear. If you want to mental misstep it, yeah, that sucks for me. But we simply will just not get misstepped by it. It simple is.
Just do not let them do it.
Yeah, just don't let them do it.
Punch him in the throat.
Stop him. Kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah, this list kind of fucks is really what it comes down to. It's a lot of, I think I mentioned this in the Kenrith episode, or if not, here's the first time I'm mentioning it. I use your list as a template for a lot of the deck building. So I look at a lot of where you have the slots dedicated towards, and how can I shift that into like the strategies that benefit the commander at the helm, or what my colors have access to, and like what's the closest approximation, and stuff like that. And this list is insanely close, about as close as we can get. You can White's really, really good. which is a very funny thing to say because like half a decade ago, everyone was like, "White, you play that garbage color?" Yeah, yeah. The list is good. It's really good.
Yeah, it is. I've enjoyed playing the versions of this that I have played so far. I haven't gotten a chance to test out with all of the new like Massacre Girl tech and like the tweaks like that, but I'm excited to like throw this together and play it. At least in some casual games here. Just get some reps in on it. Should be pretty fun.
Definitely.
Does a lot. It does a lot.
It does a lot. It's one of those like very unassuming lists where you go, okay, this is like a sans white pile with a little bit with a couple of spice cards in there, and then you start playing the list and you start going, oh man, Thrasios is like really really good in this list. But also like this list has forced me to play Land Dork Pass so goddamn much because I'm like, all of these spells in my hand are interactive spells. There is nothing more I can do to develop my board, or if I can develop my board, it puts me in such a position that I become the threat. And it's so easy for a Thrasios deck to become the threat just by having a Thrasios and a bunch of mana out, or landing a Seedborn Mute. Like you immediately become public enemy number one because like everyone knows what Thrasios does. Everyone knows what Thrasios is capable of if you let them rule the game.
Dude, Landork Pass is where I aim to be.
Yeah, and Landork Pass, like if you're not familiar with how Landork Pass plays in CDH, oh boy, this deck teaches you how to do that. But it also, this deck has been a really huge stepping stone for me in terms of just like my growth as a CDH player. Whereas like before, I was like, I don't really like playing counter spells because it's not really my style, and they still aren't my style. I can play counter spells. I can wield counter spells pretty well at this point. And I can navigate a lot of the points that being able to wield them allows you to navigate for. That's kind of the last thing I felt like I really needed to kind of round out like me as a CDH player. And this deck is just, you have to play this deck in a particular manner where like you can't like gun it. I mean, like you're on LED, Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze. Sometimes you just get handed the Turbo Breach hand and you go, yeah,
here we go.
That's what we're doing. And you go, oh, I don't really want to mulligan further beyond this. This is the entire combo plus a dork and a couple lands. Yeah, we'll just find a window. And that's then kind of the other thing is like knowing how to control the board, the table, the politics, and then really knowing when to go for the window. Playing non-blue really helps kind of guide you on where you should go for your window. But playing this deck specifically really helps indicate where you can go and where you can try and like pressure things. Like one of my semifinal games, I tested a win attempt by just raw casting a Born Upon the Wind just to see what happened. It prompted a lot of interaction to just come out of the woodworks. And like the deck's like relatively easy to play, I guess, if you can understand like the theory behind Kitten, how Kitten interacts with the entire deck, and how to just tutor chain essentially. But also like it's a very complicated and very rewarding deck, and in some cases kind of punishing because you have to know like which removal spell to use, how to use a tutor, how to relay your information as kind of the control player, quote unquote, at the table. This deck has just taught me a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's Hellcat though. Go play the list. It's a lot of fun. It's really good.
Yeah, for anyone who's looking to dabble around in Sansway 4-color, highly recommend. Give Joe's list a shot.
Yeehaw. List is in the description. Yeah, that's kind of all I got for the old.
That's where we're at.
So that's where we're at. Well, Atlas, want to thank you for one, helping me with this list when it initially started out, and then graciously handing me this list to kind of continue to tinker with and improve and grow with. It's been instrumental in my journey as a CDH player.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to watch you just make the list your own and sort of run with it. Get great results.
For sure. All right, buddy. Thank you very much for listening. Catch you next time.